The letter arrived on a Tuesday, slipped under my door like a snake slithering into Eden. Its red ink screamed violation in block letters, accusing my beat-up fishing boat of defiling the aesthetic integrity of Lakeview Estates. I stood in my cramped living room, the paper trembling in my hands, the faint scent of cheap printer ink stinging my nose. Outside, the lake glittered under the late summer sun, my little boat bobbing innocently at the dock I'd built with my own calloused hands. Karen Whitaker, president of the HOA, had finally made her move. She'd been gunning for me since I moved in 6 months ago, her pinched face and pearl-clutching glares tracking my every step. This wasn't about the boat. This was personal. I crumpled the letter, my chest tight with a mix of fury and exhaustion. I'd bought this rundown cabin to escape the city's noise, to fish in peace, to breathe air that didn't taste like asphalt. Lakeview was supposed to be my sanctuary, a quiet community of retirees and weekenders nestled around a pristine lake. But Karen ran this place like her own fiefdom, her clipboard a scepter, her rules a guillotine. She'd fine me for my unmowed lawn, sent snippy emails about my truck's oil stains, even complained about the unapproved wildflowers I'd planted by my mailbox. Now my boat-me dad's old aluminum skiff, the one we'd spent summers fixing up together, was her latest target. I could still hear his laugh, rough as gravel, echoing across the water as we cast lines at dawn. That boat was all I had left of him. I stepped onto my porch, the warped boards creaking under my boots. The lake was calm, its surface a mirror for the cotton candy clouds drifting above. But the air felt heavy, charged, like the moment before a storm breaks. Across the water, Karen's McMansion loomed, all sharp angles and gaudy shutters. The kind of house that screamed, "I'm better than you." She was probably watching me through her binoculars, her lips pursed, already drafting her next complaint. I sighed, long and slow, the weight of it settling into my bones. I wasn't built for this fight. I was just Jack Harper, a 38-year-old mechanic who wanted to fish and forget the world. But Karen had pushed too far. The next morning, I drove to the community clubhouse, a squat building with fake log siding and a sign proclaiming Lakeview Estates, harmony in nature. Harmony. My ass. Inside, the HOA meeting was already in full swing, the air thick with the smell of stale coffee and Karen's overpowering rose perfume. She stood at the front, her blonde bob immaculate, her voice sharp as a whip as she lectured about upholding property values. The room was packed with residents, mostly older folks, nodding along, too tired or scared to argue. I slipped into a folding chair at the back, my work boots still caked with mud from fixing my dock. Karen's eyes locked onto me, narrowing like a hawk spotting prey. "Mr. Harper," she said, her voice dripping with honeyed venom. "Your boat is an eyesore. Per Section 12(3) of the bylaws, all watercraft must be approved by the HOA. You've ignored 3 notices. Remove it by Friday, or we'll have it towed." A murmur rippled through the crowd, heads turning toward me. My face burned, but I kept my voice steady. "It's my dock, my boat, my property line. You don't get to decide what floats on my side of the lake." Her smile tightened, a crack in her perfect facade. "The lake belongs to the HOA. Mr. Harper, you'd know that if you read the covenants." The room went quiet, the kind of quiet that hums with tension, like a wire pulled taut. I wanted to scream, to flip the table, to tell her exactly where she could shove her covenants. But I didn't. Not yet. That night, I couldn't sleep. The cicadas outside my window buzzed like a warning, their drone mixing with the memory of Karen's smug voice. I pulled out my dad's old tackle box, the one he'd left me along with the boat. Inside, under a tangle of lures and fishing line, was a faded envelope I hadn't touched in years. His handwriting scrawled my name across the front, the ink smudged from time. I opened it, my fingers shaking, and found a yellowed deed, not just for the cabin, but for the lake itself, acres of water and shoreline, deeded to my great-grandfather in 1923. My heart pounded, a drumbeat in my chest. The HOA didn't own the lake. I did. The discovery lit a fire in me, but it wasn't enough. I needed proof. something ironclad to shove in Karen's face. I spent the next day at the county records office, the air heavy with dust and mildew, digging through files that hadn't been touched in decades. That's when I met Clara, a clerk with wild gray curls and a smoker's rasp, who took one look at my deed and whistled. "This is gold, kid," she said, her eyes glinting with mischief. "But it gets better. The clubhouse. Built on your land, too. The HOA's been squatting for years." She handed me a surveyor's map, her nicotine-stained fingers tapping the boundary lines. Karen's gonna lose her mind. Clara wasn't wrong. When I showed up at the next HOA meeting, my deed and map tucked under my arm, the room felt like a powder keg. Karen was mid-rant about mailbox uniformity when I stood up, my voice cutting through hers like a blade. "I own the lake," I said, holding up the deed. "And the clubhouse. You've been fining me for my own property." The crowd gasped, a collective intake of breath that sucked the air from the room. Karen's face went white, then red, her mouth opening and closing like a fish on a hook. "That's preposterous," she snapped, but her voice wavered. "The HOA has managed this lake for decades." "Then you've been managing it illegally," I said, laying the surveyor's map on the table. The lines were clear, undeniable, cutting through her lies like a hot knife. Whispers erupted, neighbors leaning forward, their eyes darting between me and Karen. She tried to rally, her voice rising, but it was too late. The room was turning, the tide shifting. I could feel it, the weight of truth pressing down on her. The legal battle was a blur, a whirlwind of lawyers and court dates that drained my savings but fueled my resolve. Karen fought dirty, her attorney throwing around terms like adverse possession and community precedent. But Clara's map and my deed were bulletproof. The judge, a no-nonsense woman with steel-gray hair, didn't mince words. "The HOA has no claim to the lake or the clubhouse," she ruled, her gavel cracking like thunder. "Mr. Harper is the rightful owner." The courtroom buzzed, Karen's face crumpling as her empire fell apart. I wanted to cheer, to pump my fist, but all I felt was a hollow ache. This wasn't just about winning. It was about taking back what was mine. The fallout was swift. The HOA dissolved, its funds frozen, its rules nullified. Karen's McMansion went up for sale, her name a punchline among the neighbors who'd once bowed to her. I stood on my dock the next morning, the lake stretching out before me, its surface rippling with the first breath of autumn. My boat rocked gently, the aluminum glinting in the dawn light. I could almost hear my dad's voice, low and warm, telling me to hold fast, to fight for what mattered. I'd won, but the victory tasted bittersweet, like coffee gone cold. I opened the clubhouse to the community, free of charge, a place for kids to fish and families to picnic. The wildflowers by my mailbox bloomed brighter, their petals swaying in the breeze. Karen was gone, but the scars of her reign lingered neighbors who'd stayed silent, rules that had choked the life out of this place. I'd torn it all down, but rebuilding would take time. As I cast my line into the lake, the water swallowing the lure with a soft plop, I made a promise to myself. This was my home, my legacy. No one would take it from me again.